Hello and welcome to Faithfully Stampin' with Jennifer Helm. I am Jennifer Helm, the Faithful Stamper, an independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up. Today I have for you an inside panel pop-up card. From the front of the card, you might not think there's anything special about this. You can design the front of the card any way you like. It's on the inside where things get fun. It's where the party happens. So when you flip open the card, I'll show you a couple different angles here. There's a fun pop-up element. So when you open it up, this panel moves forward. So there's a little pop-up. There's a couple different views. This is a very simple technique, no complicated instructions to put together, and you don't need many supplies. So let's go ahead and I'll share with you how to make it. The first thing you are going to need is a piece of cardstock for your card base. You need the style of card base that is 4 1/4 inches wide by 11 inches long. And then you need to score it on the long side at 5 1/2. And you can go ahead and fold your cardstock in half, and that gives you your card base. Now I'm going to design the front of the card first. As I mentioned already, you can design this any way you want. I'm going to do a quick panel with strips of designer series paper. So my front panel is 5 1/4 by 4, and you have lots of different options for this. You could use designer series paper, cardstocks, combinations. I'll show you some samples at the end to show you some of the options you have. So what I'm going to do first is stamp my sentiment on the card, and that way if I make a mistake I can flip this over or start again without ruining the whole thing. So I am using the Waves of Inspiration stamp set. Sorry, for some reason I moved that across the room. Here is the Waves of Inspiration stamp set. This is carrying forward to our new annual catalog, which is coming out May 3rd of 2022. That's tomorrow. So if you don't have a demonstrator you're currently working with and you would like a copy of the new catalog, please feel free to get in touch with me or check it out on my website. Lots of exciting new products to see, including this stamp set. So, You're So Totally Awesome is my sentiment that I'm going to stamp here near the top in Pool Party ink, and I think we'll go with that. But if I had made a mistake, I could have flipped my panel over and tried again. Now what I'm going to do is bring over my silicone mat, and that way I'm protecting my work surface from the glue I'm about to use, or adhesive, because I'm going to take 5 strips of designer series paper. They're cut 1/2 inch wide, and they're probably between 5 and 6 inches long. I'm going to put them at an angle, so I knew they had to be wider than 4 and I needed a little overhang. So I just took strips from the designer series paper that coordinates with the stamp set, and I'm going to place them, I'm going to put them in a random order just to kind of see what pattern I liked here. And I have both sides of the paper to choose from, which is a lot of fun. Let's see. I think I'll go with that. So what I'm going to do is use the side of my silicone mat here to put the glue on the strips, and I'm just using Stampin' Seal. You can use liquid glue for this, but you'll have to let it set a little bit longer, just given the nature that it is liquid glue. And so I'm going to press that there. And I'm just going to continue here running some adhesive along the back of my strips of paper and then butting them up one against the other. And I have a little maneuverability with my paper if I want a particular end a little more visible or not visible on my card. I could even probably leave spaces in between if I wanted. So I think I'm going to have to order myself a second craft mat so I have a little more room to play with. It'll be a little easier. But this is definitely worth saving my workstation. So, you could obviously use more designer series paper, less designer series paper. You could vary the width of your strips. Lots of options you have here. And then, let's see. I guess we'll go with that. All right, so now I know that looks a little funny, but it won't in a minute because see why I use my silicone mat? I just saved my workstation from getting all sticky. So I'm gonna take my paper snips and just trim off the overhanging paper. Obviously your panel will look different depending on the angle of your paper strips and how many you used, etc. And let's see. There's one side and then here is the other. There we go. All right. So now that my scraps are off the work table, there is my beautiful panel all ready for the front of my card. Now I am going to add some finishing touches, but I'm going to wait until after my card is put together to add the finishing touches, but I'm going to go ahead and put this on the card base now. So I'm just going to glue this to the front, again using my Stampin' Seal, just making all sorts of funny noises this evening. All right, so there we go, quick press. And this is ready to go. I think I got a little glue there. That's okay. It's gonna be covered up at the end. And then I'm gonna work on the inside of the card now to show you the pop-up panel. So for the inside of the card, you need a piece of cardstock, basic white, or whatever color you choose, that is 3 3/4 inches wide by 10.5 inches long. We're just going to score this in 3 places, and that's going to create the panel we need, the base for our pop-up effect. So you will need either a scoring tool or your paper trimmer scorer, whatever you have handy. And for this, you will need to extend the arm if you have your paper trimmer. And we're going to score it 3 times. So there's my measurements if you want to take a quick screenshot. So on our 10.5 inch side, we are going to score at 4 1/4, then an inch over at 5 1/4, and one last time at 6 1/4, which is over here in this gray area, which is why I needed to open my extendable arm. And so there we have 2 large rectangles on either end and then the 2 skinny ones in the middle. That is all we need to do for scoring to assemble the inside of our card. So I'm going to do some stamping really quick before I go ahead and fold and get this moving, and that way if I make a mistake again I can start over. Not a lot of stamping on this particular portion. I'm going to find my birthday greeting. It's a birthday card. I come back to my pool party ink pad and stamp my happy birthday. And then I decided that I wanted to add a little accent. So I have Pacific Point ink that matches my cardstock, and I'm going to add some birds. Just some little birds flying around my sentiment. And then I decided I wanted to have something to fill up this white space here. Now you can leave it blank, you can stamp all over, it's up to you what you want to do with it. I am going to use the beautiful dies that go with the stamp set. So I pre-cut on a sheet of adhesive this beautiful wave image from the stamp set. And so basically I created a sticker that I'm going to peel and put on the card here. So as I said, you could stamp, you can leave it blank, up to you. And whoop, got one little piece there hanging out that I think, let's see, I'm just gonna leave be. So I'm gonna line this up right on that top score line, just a hair above it. And I'm gonna start in this corner, like so. Make sure that's straight. And then, whoop, all right, press down my sticker. Just like that. There's that beautiful wave design. And I'm going to come back to these birds, as I said, just for 1 minute because the wave is lonely. He needs some birds. And this just kind of ties things together. All right, so next I'm going to fold this. And I could have folded it before I stamped it if I wanted to, but whichever you like. So you've got your 3 score lines here. You're going to create a mountain on the center score line. So just like that, make a little teepee. Then fold the other score lines up towards you. So basically you're creating a W. And I just like to put that down on my table and give it a good press. And this creates the panel that we need for that inside pop-up piece to adhere to. So I have my card base. This is super simple to line up. Fold this piece flat, your center piece. Just fold it flat. You're going to line up the center mark on your card base with the center score line on this insert panel. So it's easier to fold it flat, line it up so the lines match, and then line it up side to side, so center it. And then when you get it there, just hold it in place with your fingers. There we go. Now, the key here is you do not want adhesive on the back of these 2 panels. So what I recommend is once you have this in place, just hold it with your hand and fold down the top panel. Hold it in place and take your adhesive just on that rectangle. And then double check as you're unfolding that you didn't jiggle it too much. But then just slide your hand right up. That glues in place. And then you're going to repeat on the bottom. So keep those 2 rectangles flat, fold up that bottom panel, and put on your adhesive. And same thing, just make sure it folds flat. And then, as you are folding the card closed, just lift up a bit here to make that piece pop out, and then fold it shut, fold the whole card shut, give it a good press, and that way you've creased your pop-up panel nicely, okay? One last step, the pop-up panel. This is a piece of cardstock that is 3 3/4 inches wide by 3 inches tall. You can either leave it square or you can round the corners, up to you. I am going to round the corners on mine. Now, I decided I wanted to use this beautiful wave image from the stamp set, but I want to make sure it's straight up and down on the card. I want to make sure I get good coverage with ink, so I have my Stamparatus, which is our stamping platform if you're not familiar. And I'm only using one of the hinged panels. It comes with 2, but I only need one for this. Since I stamped one earlier, I made a mark here on my grid paper so I know where to position my panel. And these magnets are really, really strong, so try not to slam them together. They will pinch your fingers. What I did was I took some duct tape and just covered the magnet to give me a little bit of an extra handhold because I don't have a whole lot of fingernails to try to get under and pry these up or pry them apart. If they happen to get stuck together, they will come apart. It takes a little wrestling, but if you have something to grab onto, it's a little bit easier. So there is my magnets to hold it in place. I'm all lined up and ready to go. There we go. Now, I like to put something underneath my Stamparatus panel, my hinged panel here, just to help me get the ink on better. With the slope downwards, I tend to get ink all around on my plate, which sometimes ends up on my project. So a simple fix is if you have a flat ink pad or a stamp case, like I use my colored pencils to keep in there, go ahead and put that down. This will level out your plate and make it much easier to get ink where you want it and keep it off where you don't want it. So I'm going to come to my Pacific Point ink and go ahead and stamp up my image. I don't need to go all the way to the end because I know my panel isn't that long. But the great thing about this is if I don't get enough ink coverage the first time, I can come back and restamp it. So once I think I'm ready, I can go ahead and flip my panel closed, give it a nice press. You can use a stamp block if you want and just give it a press, or use your fist gently. And there is my image. Looks pretty good, but I think I'm just gonna press a couple areas one more time. Yep, and I'm happy with that. So if I wasn't happy, I could just re-ink the stamp and close it again, and even if I wanted to make it a darker image, I could. But I'm happy with that. So I'm going to move my magnets and move my panel. And just for the moment, I'm going to put a piece of scrap paper in here until I can come back and clean off that stamp. Easy peasy, right? So now that we're done that, the panel needs to be attached to the pop-up. Now there's two ways I can do that, and it's really just preference on your part which one you do. You can put some adhesive here on the bottom and then line it up with this panel and press it. Or if you want to keep it really simple, just fold the card flat, add your adhesive here on the bottom of those two skinny rectangles, and I'd probably be fine to continue using my Stamp and Seal, but I want to make sure this panel is not going to fall off. So I'm going to switch to my Stamp and Seal Plus. Just has a little extra strength and is good for 3D projects. So I'm going to opt for that. Just keeping the adhesive between those score lines. And then I'm just going to line up the bottom of the panel just above that bottom score line. And then line it up side to side. Give that a press. Fold my card shut. And there, the inside panel is completely done, ready to go. So I mentioned at the beginning that I glued my front panel on, but I needed to add some finishing touches, but I didn't want to do it and add extra bulk to the card. It's much easier to assemble all of this without any added thickness or bumpiness to the front of the card. So I'm going to come back and do it now. It's super simple. I pre-stamped and die cut this little pelican. So he is going to get dimensionals, mini ones, since they are perfect for his little body and his perch here, to make sure I have adequate dimensional coverage. I don't want my beautiful pelican to be sagging in the middle when somebody gets this card. So just peeling the backs off there. Then he is going to be put right here on the front of the card. And that's perfect because he covered the little smudge of glue I had there. Now, I could send it just like this, but I want to add a little bling. So there were some rhinestones that coordinated with this paper, which retires today. The rhinestones are already sold out. And I'm going to take my Take Your Pick tool and my little piercing tool to add some gems. So this helps me pick them up easier, because if I... sometimes I still fling them across the room like that, but if I try to use my fingernails, I am definitely going to fling them across the room. So this is a great tool to help me keep them from flinging across the room. All right, and just like that, my card is finished, except I always forget my envelope. So this guy needs an envelope, right? Can't have a naked envelope. So really quick, I have my Pacific Point ink, and I'm going to go back and restamp that pelican for a fun little envelope accent, which I normally put in the left corners, but I like him better on the right. It's kind of standing guard over there. All right, now my card is ready to go to its recipient. Now I have some samples to show you. I mentioned you have free reign with how to create the front of your card, and you really do on the inside too. So this one, we primarily stamped, added the die cut image there. Now you can have a lot of fun. Here is one where I primarily stamped the front of the card, and then I added some die cut, or punch shapes actually. One die cut shape, the one that says My Friend. This is a beautiful new set of dies called Stylish Shapes. And our Ladybug punch, our large daisy punch, which is retiring, but the medium daisy punch is not. And then when you open the card, I have a larger greeting here on the top with a floral frame around it. My little ladybugs marching across the front of the card. And then my birthday sentiment on the bottom. So this one primarily stamping with a few punched elements. And of course, my envelope to match. Next up, I let my designer series paper do the talking. I used a piece that was 5 1/4 by 4, same dimensions as that panel I used on the first card. Here I added my sentiment with a strip of paper to accent behind it, added some little flower punches and bling. And then on the inside of this one, I repeated with more of the designer series paper. So all you have to do is take your dimensions here and cut a piece of paper to fit. I even added strips of paper to the smaller rectangles here since I went with the Poppy Parade color instead of basic white. And for my sentiment, I die cut some of the circles, again from that Stylish Shapes die set, which is going to be a new favorite of mine, I think. But I did not add dimensionals. I just glued them flat on the card. I was careful where I put my adhesive here on this panel because I didn't want to add any thickness to the card. Just the nature of the pop-up, there is a little bit of thickness, so you might want to check with your post office if this would require extra postage or not, just to be on the safe side. And then again, a little stamped envelope to echo the design I stamped on the inside. And then last but not least, I have this fun card. This is a brand new pack of designer series paper from our Hues of Happiness suite in our new catalog. This is beautiful paper I've been dying to play with. So I just added a banner. There is actually here a die cut flower. It kind of blends right in with the paper, but I like it. Added some bling here. And then on the inside of the card, I have this fun die cut pop-up. So I just stamped tone on tone with a large floral image, repeated here on the panel, and then I die cut some shapes, the floral shapes and leaves, and added those with my greeting. So lots of different options for how to design the front of the card as well as the inside of the card. So I hope you enjoyed learning how to make this inside panel pop-up card. If you have not already, I would love for you to subscribe to this YouTube channel. You can click the subscribe button and click the notification bell, and it will notify you whenever I post a new video here on the page, which is typically twice a week. You can also follow me over on The Faithful Stamper on Facebook if you like. And I do live videos there and advertise different specials and events that Stampin' Up! Has to offer. Thank you so much for watching. Take care and happy crafting.